Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to Season 2 of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Kayla Smith, CEO of the Hormone Puzzle Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching, creator of the Hormone Puzzle Method, an infertility warrior, two-time boy mom, and women's health expert. This podcast is for women struggling with infertility, painful periods, terrible PMS, or really just any symptom of hormone imbalance that they are ready to eliminate for good. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the fields of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're going to finally help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get pregnant and eliminate those pesky symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season is packed with even more expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, giving you that jolt of energy that you so desperately need, sending you lots of virtual hugs, and inspiring you to take your fertility into your own hands and make that baby. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now let's get started on your road to transformation. Today's guest is Michelle Kapler, a registered acupuncturist and traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, board certified reproductive specialist, and owner and clinical director of the Toronto Reproductive Acupuncture Clinic. She is one of only 5 practitioners in the province of Ontario who have challenged the exam to become a fellow of the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine, the governing body for fertility specialists in the U.S. Her clinical practice is focused exclusively in fertility, pregnancy, gynecology, and hormone health. Listen in as we talk all about acupuncture, what it is, and how it can help you regulate your hormones, have a more pleasant cycle, and get and stay pregnant. Now let's welcome Michelle to our show. Hey, Michelle, thanks for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, I love talking about all things fertility, so I'm right there with you.
Yes, me too. Well, let's dive into that. Tell us a little bit more about you, who you are and how you started working in women's health.
Of course. So I'm an acupuncturist by trade, and I've been practicing for over 10 years, and my specialty is in fertility. That's all I've done my entire career is fertility and women's health. And I'm also a fellow of the ABORM, the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine, which is the specialty governing body for fertility practitioners in the U.S. I also own a fertility clinic in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I have my own podcast called Fertility Academy, and we aim to do, a very similar thing that you do. And then I also offer some online consulting for fertility as well.
Oh, I love that. It's amazing. So tell us, for those who don't know, what is acupuncture?
So acupuncture is essentially inserting tiny, tiny, tiny little needles at certain points in the body as diagnosed by a professional in order to affect the nervous system to have a particular effect on, and I'll talk about it in the context of fertility because there's many, many reasons why people do acupuncture. But in terms of its application to fertility medicine, we're looking to affect the nervous system and the blood flow in the body. So for example, some people would use acupuncture to treat pain, and then we'd be looking at a different effect with the acupuncture. But with fertility, we're looking to optimize a few different systems via the nervous system and the blood supply. So when we insert these needles, then they have that effect and you get the positive impact of the treatment.
I love that. So can we go into a little bit deeper there? So exactly, say I come to see you. I've been trying to get pregnant for a year. I'm like, I have unexplained infertility. I don't know what the heck's going on with me. How would acupuncture help me with that? And where would you kind of start with me?
So we would essentially start with a conversation. Any kind of custom treatment plan, which is how I like to practice. I like to do an individualized treatment plan for every single patient that comes through my door. It's really important to sit down with the person and really understand what their goals are with treatment and understand, what they're looking to accomplish. Obviously, at the end of the day, everybody's looking to get pregnant, but there's a lot of different ways that people can get pregnant. So we sit down and have a conversation about that, where you're at right now and where you're hoping to be. Because there's a lot of different ways that people might approach unexplained infertility. So, for example, somebody might be coming to me and they've gotten this diagnosis from the fertility clinic. They don't know what to do. They're just looking to optimize because they're not quite ready to do treatment yet. So they might just be looking to get as healthy as possible using acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And then there's a whole other end of the spectrum where people come and they're already into their 7th IVF cycle and they've heard acupuncture might be great to help, but they're terrified of needles and I'm literally their last resort. So, there's that kind of person too. And so it starts with that conversation where I get an idea of where the person is and where they're hoping to go. From there, we go into a conversation about their current health and what kind of things I can come up with in my mind that I might be able to use to support them. And from there, we make a treatment plan. And the treatment plan will look like, kind of the details of what's going to happen, how many sessions they might need, how long they might need to come see me in order to see results. How are we going to know that we're getting results? Because that's another thing entirely. I mean, with any health change that you make, it's very black and white. You're either pregnant or you're not. But how do we know if what we're doing is working for you? So we look at different goalposts along the way that we can measure our success and talk about what that's going to look like as well. And from there, on the first session, we'll also do your first acupuncture treatment, and then we'll continue the treatment plan from there.
I love it. And I have a lot of clients that are doing acupuncture and it works so well for them. So I think it's a great addition to kind of a holistic lifestyle and some other things that we're doing with food and natural medicine. So I love that.
Yeah, it's great. It's nice because I happen to be at a point in the trajectory of acupuncture careers where it's becoming a lot more recognized by the medical community. There's a lot of really good research surrounding the acupuncture, and especially in the context of IVF. A lot of the studies are done on IVF combined with acupuncture, and it's really great to see that there are actually physicians out there that are recommending that as part of the treatment plan on a very regular basis. Whereas my colleagues 10 years ago, the doctors were saying things like, oh, well, I don't know anything about acupuncture. Don't do that. It might be dangerous. It might affect what you're doing negatively. So just stay away from anybody who's not a doctor. And it's very different now because we're able to create this truly integrative medicine where you can take these multiple tools that are available. And I think that really is cutting edge medical practice at the end of the day, where you can take all of these different tools and combine them in a way that is perfect for your particular situation.
I love that. And I love it. It's becoming mainstream now. It's kind of Eastern and Western medicine are meeting. And I love it because like you said, 10 years ago, it was not like that at all. And we were kind of seen as this woo woo, like, I don't know if that works. So I'm so glad the tides are turning for sure.
Yeah, me too. It's a really exciting time to be in practice right now.
For sure. So let's talk about, Western medical treatment. Say somebody is doing IVF or even IUI. How would acupuncture kind of team with that and how would it help them?
Sure. So when you're working with a fertility clinic to do treatments to try to get pregnant, our objectives in, the actual points that we use and the actual, effect that we're trying to create in the body, it doesn't differ that much than if you were trying to conceive without the help of medicine. But really the expectations are that in that context, we're not looking at it as I'm your primary method of getting pregnant. Where there are some people that would come to me as their sole practitioner and the sole method of getting pregnant. But if you're doing an IUI and an IVF cycle, we're looking at it as more of a supportive therapy. And so there's kind of three main objectives that we look at in that context. And it doesn't differ that much between IUI and IVF. With IVF, the timing becomes a little bit more crucial, becomes a little bit more important to time the treatments along with different steps in the procedure. But essentially, we're looking at three main things. So the first thing is improving pelvic blood flow. which research has shown acupuncture is very effective at doing that. And when you're improving pelvic blood flow, there's a couple of effects that you get. The first is you get lots of extra oxygen and nutrients that are delivered to the pelvis via the bloodstream. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of really good things that come out of that. Thicker uterine lining, better quality eggs, better ovulation, better hormonal balance. So that's kind of one of the main things that we look at. The second thing is nervous system regulation. As we know, the nervous system is becoming more and more an important part of overall health in the eyes of anybody that practices medicine. And so we want to make sure that things are balanced, not only to address stress, but also, that nervous system part of things that's physical as well. So we look to balance the nervous system, and acupuncture is incredibly effective at doing that. And then the third objective that we have is any kind of discomforts that come up as a result of medication side effects. So pain, headaches, hot flashes, mood swings, insomnia, digestive complaints. I even have people that have weird symptoms that come in because they're on medications, like they have extreme thirst or, something like that. So we look to treat anything like that might come up from day to day, and that can change from appointment to appointment. If we're seeing you once a week, then 1 week you might come in feeling totally fine, and the next week you might have horrible hot flashes and you want to kill your partner. So we would address that in the treatment as well.
I love that. And so one question I get a lot from my clients is acupuncture safe? And so talk to us a little bit about that. How safe is it? And the other piece of that is, does it hurt?
Okay, so I'll address them both separately. So to answer the first question, is it safe? I think that first and foremost, it's really important to see somebody that knows what they're doing. And it really comes down to doing your own research about what acupuncture or how acupuncture operates and is governed in the place that you live. So there are states, for example, where acupuncture isn't regulated. There are provinces in Canada where acupuncture isn't regulated, which essentially means that anybody can pick up a box of acupuncture needles and give somebody acupuncture. Whereas there are certain states and there are certain provinces. The province of Ontario, where I practice, for example, is regulated. And so you have to have a certain level of education to be able to practice. You have to have written multiple board exams. You have to have proven yourself to have a certain level of competency to be able to offer this service to people. So that's kind of baseline one. Making sure that if it is regulated, that you see somebody that has a license to practice, and if it isn't regulated, making sure that you really do your research to know what kind of experience and training the person has. So that's like basic level stuff. But if you do that due diligence with the basic level stuff, you're going to know that at the very least, they're going to know which points not to do to cause you harm, which is really important. Acupuncture in general isn't a terribly risky procedure. It's fairly safe. There's fairly little risk of side effects that come with having acupuncture, but there are adverse effects that happen. And so you want to make sure that you see somebody that is qualified and has a license or knows what they're doing, because usually those adverse effects happen when somebody is practicing without a license. Further to that, in the US, for example, there is a governing body for fertility specialists, and it's my belief that it is ideal to see somebody who has done the extra training and education to know the fertility system and the fertility practice on the medical side inside out and backwards, because you want to know that the treatment that you're doing is not going to negatively impact the medications that you're taking, the procedures that you're doing, the very extensive and expensive procedures that you're doing with your doctor. You want to make sure that whatever you're adding on isn't going to negatively impact that. And if you see somebody, for example, that's a fellow of the ABORM, they've proven that they've taken all of that extra education. We have to do a rigorous 5-hour exam to get qualified to be a fellow of the board. We have to do a ton of continuing education to make sure that we're up to date on the latest information. And when you do that, when you've done all that work and you find somebody, then you know that you're going to be in a situation where it's safe. And then your second question was, does it hurt? Yes. So I think this is like any like any kind of procedure, any kind of practitioner. So there's going to be people who have differing styles of practice. So some acupuncturists, I would say, are more heavy-handed than others. So that will come from experience. You can always interview somebody in advance and ask them what kind of treatment style they have, but it's kind of the same as going for a massage. Some massage therapists will be, a little bit more aggressive with their treatments, and some massage therapists take a more gentle approach. And so it kind of just depends on what you're looking for. For me personally, I tend to be very much on the gentle side of things. I know that for fertility, and that's the specialty that I practice in, people already feel poked and prodded and anxious and not looking forward to all these appointments that they have to go to. So I want them to come to my clinic and look forward to their appointment. I want them to feel relaxed and happy about having to come and see me, as opposed to, your date with the vaginal ultrasound every day for your stem cycle. I want it to be a very different experience from that. And it's my belief that you can get the effect that you want to get from gentle needling just as much as you can from aggressive needling. So the speech that I give people when they first get on the table for the first time, they've never had acupuncture before, is I say, it's okay to feel sensation. We are looking to stimulate the nervous system. So it's okay to feel something when the needles go in, but we don't want you to be so uncomfortable that you can't relax. So if anything is beyond your comfort level, just let me know and we'll adjust, because I want you to be able to relax enough to fall asleep on the table. That's really my goal with everybody who comes in, is that they feel good and relaxed enough to actually take a 20-minute nap on the table. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I love that. It sounds super relaxing for sure. So let's talk about myths. What are some myths around acupuncture that you hear? And let's debunk a couple of those.
Myths about acupuncture. That's an interesting question. I would say that something that's really important to address, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a myth, but more around applying research to acupuncture practice. I think a lot of people want to hear about success rates and percentages and numbers and things like that. And I think that with the practice of acupuncture, I don't know if that's necessarily a useful conversation to have, or a good question to ask, because in order to get the best of acupuncture practice and that type of medicine, it really does need to be a truly individualized treatment plan. It needs to be a situation where the practitioner will sit down with you and ask you everything about your body and your life and how things are going and how things are working, and they come up with an individualized treatment plan. And that's going to be how you're going to get the best from this medicine, is an individualized plan. And the problem is when you try to apply that to a gold standard research, where it's a double-blind, placebo, peer-reviewed, controlled study, is that they want everybody to get the same set of points. They want it all to be in the same context with the same variables. But the problem is that if you give everybody the same points, you're just really not going to get the same effect. You're not going to be able to see the full extent of the medicine. And so the research that we do is good. I think it's important to have at least the evidence that it's doing something, or at the very least, the evidence that it's not doing harm. And I think that we've achieved that nicely within the profession. But to actually come in and say, how much more chance, what percentage chance will I have if I add acupuncture based on the research? It's a tough question to ask, because everybody is looking to get pregnant or everybody might struggle with infertility for different reasons. There might be different reasons why you're doing IVF or going to a fertility clinic in the first place. And so comparing yourself to other people, which essentially is what you need to do to get that percentage of chance of adding the acupuncture, it just doesn't really work out in practical life. So I would say that's not really a myth, but I think it is an important conversation to have, that the research that you look at, it does serve a purpose to know that we're not doing harm and that there is a good effect happening, but also to take it with a grain of salt. And really what you want to do is talk to an individual practitioner about your particular situation and asking them, can you help me? Do you think it will be effective?
Gotcha. I love it. Well, awesome. We're going to take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors, and we're going to come back in, and I want to dive into some practical tips on how to optimize our fertility and maybe dive into a little bit around Chinese herbs and medicine. So we'll be right back. Hey y'all, it's Coach Kayla here. I hope you are loving this episode as much as I am. We will be back in just a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Hormone P.U.Z.Z.L.E Society, a women's health hub for fertility, hormones, and the business of coaching. Whether you're struggling to get pregnant with pesky hormone symptoms, or you're working to build a career in the fertility and women's health space, we have you covered. Visit our website at www.coachkayla.com to learn more on how we can help you. Text the keyword fertility to 615-257-8855 for your free fertility meal plan. Hey, Michelle, welcome back.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
Yes. So now let's talk a little bit more about practical tips. What are maybe 3 things that you tell most of your clients on how to just optimize their fertility and optimize their acupuncture experience?
I think that's a really important question because, acupuncture is really only going to take you so far, right? It's like any therapy, even IVF. There's only so much that your doctor can do for you with that tool. And it's really the 98% of the week that you're not in the office when it's really up to the person to kind of carry on the treatment and the efficacy of the treatment. So acupuncture is going to do something no matter what, but I find that people that really lean into the health changes, the lifestyle changes, the techniques that you can use to get as healthy as possible, those are the people that tend to get the most out of the treatments. And again, it's not to say that you're not going to get anything if you don't do these things, but if you really want to make the most of it, then there are a couple of things that you can look at. So there are really 5 main things that I like to talk to people about on a general basis, and I'll go through them pretty quickly. I know that there isn't really time to go into the details. But the first one is, food and nutrition. So making sure that you're eating a diet that is conducive to fertility. There's so much nutrition information out there, and I think some of it is applicable to fertility, and some of it is the opposite of what you want to be doing for fertility. So these athletic diets or these diets where you're significantly limiting your calories, those types of things are really not what you want to be doing when you want to get pregnant. So just taking a look at that is really important. There's lots of great resources out there that you can look at. The second one is movement. Exercise is one word, but I like to say movement as well, because exercise can kind of conjure up that putting on my gym outfit and heading out to the class that I hate and that I feel like I'm beating myself up. But to me, movement is anything that you do with your body to get that blood flow going, right? And so making sure that you're moving on a regular basis, doing something that you enjoy, that makes you that at least that you don't hate, that you might look forward to doing, is a good thing. I particularly like to recommend Pilates specifically because I think it's really, really great for core support and blood flow to the pelvis, but it can really be anything. Even walking counts as movement and exercise. The third thing that I like to chat about with people is environmental factors that we look at. So, what are the things in your life that may be contributing to toxic overload in your body? And that can be anything from, eating a diet that is more organically focused and has less pesticides and chemicals. It can be things like taking a look at the household products that you're using, so your laundry soap and your cleaning materials and things like that. Looking at your body care products, your makeup, your shampoo, all of that stuff can, if you're using conventional products, it can have a lot of hormone disrupting chemicals in it. And so you want to take a look at minimizing that as much as possible to keep your body healthy. And there are tons of great resources on that as well. It's not something that I personally teach, but I do definitely encourage people to go out and look at that. The fourth thing, and I think it's the most important and under-discussed aspect of health, is sleep. So making sure that you're getting that 7 to 9 hours of, good quality sleep every single night if you can do a world of good for making sure that your hormones are balanced, making sure that things are working properly. And if you're not sleeping well, if you're spending your 7 to 9 hours in the bed, but you can't sleep, see somebody to fix it, get some assistance. There's so many people that you can talk to about improving your sleep. It could be an acupuncturist, it could be a naturopathic doctor, it could be even your medical doctor. But if that's something that's, not working well for you, it's definitely my recommendation to address it and prioritize it. And then the last thing is stress management. That's a huge conversation that could be an entire podcast in and of itself, but at the very least, addressing and taking a look and noticing where you're at with your stress is something that I suggest as well.
I love that. And that's all things that are in the Hormone Puzzle method that we talk about here on the show a lot. So I completely agree with all of that. And I would love to dive in a little bit more to the stress piece. What are some of your top tips for stress management?
So I think that it's an interesting question because it's highly dependent on the person's relationship to stress. I mean, we all process it in different ways. I would venture to say that if you look at the research, and again, you have to take research with a certain grain of salt, but if you look at the research, there's no actual causal relationship between stress and infertility. I mean, the research shows that stress itself it's not the thing that's going to keep you from getting pregnant, but we know as natural practitioners that it does have an impact on our body, and it is important to address it, not only from a hormonal function, body function perspective, but also from a quality of life perspective, because it doesn't just stop when you get pregnant and have a baby. I mean, how you manage your nervous system and how you relate to life and how you relate to the world doesn't get any easier when you have kids. In fact, I think that, IVF is actually great training for, infertility is a great way to learn how to manage your mind in preparation for parenthood. I think I just went on a tangent. I'm going to bring it back to where I was going with this. But that being said, I think if we get honest with ourselves, we know what's up. We know that, are we moving through life with nervous, anxious energy all the time? Are we feeling, subjectively stressed out all the time? If the answer is yes, I think it's important to look into it. And there are lots of different techniques out there that people use. It could be meditation. It could be finding a hobby that you enjoy. It could be joining a support group. I mean, there are so many different ways to support your stress and your nervous system through all of it. Seeing an acupuncturist is a really great way to passively deal with stress. You'd basically just lie on the table and somebody does a treatment on you and your nervous system is renewed within the hour. So it's pretty magical too. But like I said, you have to manage it in the rest of your life as well. But one piece that I do want to touch on is that practicing in Toronto, I get a lot of highly accomplished type A women that come in and they really struggle with that aspect of really beating themselves up when they're not getting pregnant. And they make the assumption that they're doing it to themselves because I'm using quote fingers, too stressed out, right, and that they're causing this. And I really want to say that if that's the case in someone's mind, that you've got to let yourself off the hook, that it's so much more complicated than that. And yes, it's important to address it, but it's not going to be the thing that keeps you from getting pregnant. Do we need to address it? Yes. But, if your boss is breathing down your neck or you have, deadlines or you have a really stressful job, I think it's going to create more stress to be stressed out about being stressed out. So just noticing that as well is important.
Exactly. I completely agree. So let's talk about the period. I know you said on Instagram recently that we see it kind of as our fifth vital sign, and I completely agree with that. So how does acupuncture help us with our period and getting it more regulated?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, I think that it's really interesting to kind of take the perspective of celebrating our period. I mean, in our culture, we really tend to hate our periods and think of them as something that's an inconvenience and that is painful and awful and terrible and kind of this, burden that we have to carry as people who menstruate. But as a practitioner who's able to look at a lot of periods from day to day, I actually see it as a gift. So as a medical provider, I get to take this tool that is essentially a look inside of ourselves every month to our internal state of health. And I get to use that as a diagnostic tool as we go along. So as we do acupuncture, we use the period to, as we were talking about earlier, know if what we're doing is working. Because again, pregnancy is very black and white. You're either pregnant or you're not, but you can use the period and that reliable, or maybe not so reliable, but it becomes reliable as we go through treatment as a gauge to know whether or not we know if what we're doing is working. So as we do acupuncture and regulate the nervous system and the hormones via that method, we look to see positive menstrual changes. So we look at things becoming more regular, less painful, a certain amount of flow. So for example, we don't want things to be super heavy, but we don't want things to be super light. PMS is another huge sign of dysfunction. So we look to see if things are improving in that department. Are you feeling fewer mood swings? Maybe you have really sore breasts before your period every month. We're looking to see if that diminishes or goes away. And so we were able to look at those signs from month to month to see if we're improving things. And to me, if things are improving in that way, if things are becoming more regulated and less painful, it's a good sign that you're getting healthier and essentially more fertile.
For sure. I always say that, our period's our body's report card, and we need to listen to that and listen to what our body's telling us. So I love that.
I love that. Our periods are our body's report card. I'm going to post that on Instagram and I'll quote you. I love it.
Okay. Thanks. I love it. So let's talk a little bit more about food. You talk about one of our vital nutrients that a lot of people are low in is iron. So let's talk a little bit more about that. How, are you seeing that in your practice, and how do we get more iron if we are low?
For sure. So iron is one of those nutrients that's essential for pregnancy, and it's essential for women's health, even outside of the context of getting pregnant. And so making sure that you're getting good iron-rich foods in your diet just as a maintenance protocol. And there are lots of different ways to get iron.
I normally would do like some leafy greens, trying to get the color of the rainbow there with the greens, like super dark, light, all over the place.
Love it. Eat the rainbow.
Yes, eat the rainbow of greens. I love it.
Yeah, essentially when I look at food, I tend to universally recommend more of a Mediterranean diet, which tends to be rich in all of those really important essential nutrients that we're looking at for getting pregnant. So, lots of olives and olive oil, lean protein, tons of vegetables, things like that tends to be the diet that I recommend. And by default, it tends to be high in iron.
Yes, same. Yep. I recommend Mediterranean diets, balanced whole food nutrition, trying to stay away from the processed and the sugars and putting in as much vegetables and a little bit of fat, a little bit of fiber. And then, so it sounds like we agree there.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yes. Well, wonderful. So tell us a little bit more about where we can find you. How can we work with you? How can we learn more about you and your programs?
Of course. So I'm available at michellekapler.com, and on that website you can find ways to work with me both in person and virtually. So if you're in the Greater Toronto area, you can come and see me for acupuncture. And then if you want to work together virtually, I can see anybody all over the world. And in the context of working together virtually, it would be things like, let's discuss lifestyle. Let's come up with a plan to help you optimize fertility. We can talk about Chinese herbs. We can talk about supplements. There's a whole bunch of approaches that we can take. And so there's that. And then there's also my podcast called Fertility Academy, and that can be found on any of the major players. And it's very similar. It's great information. I have a lot of guest experts come on and talk about their particular area of expertise. And then I have a nice blend of people coming on and telling their fertility stories, both successful and unsuccessful, because I think it's important to hear all of them so you can feel like you're not alone. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Michelle Kapler.
I love it. And we'll have all that linked in the show notes so everybody can find you on all those places. And it reminded me when you were just saying that, we forgot to talk about Chinese herbs. So really quick, can you kind of dive into that? Maybe one or two that you love to recommend?
Yeah. So again, it's highly individual. So you want to make sure that you're seeing somebody who can assess you. Chinese herbs are really strong and they work really well. So you want to make sure that you're taking the right thing. I do hang out on IVF and fertility Facebook groups and chat rooms and things like that, just so I can kind of see what people are saying and what people are talking about. And I do see people sometimes saying, hey, I'm taking this thing, and they send a screenshot of this Chinese herbal formula. And the thing is that it might have been miraculous for that particular person, but it might be completely the wrong thing for you. So my main message is see somebody who's licensed and qualified so they can give you an individualized formula. See somebody who has a lot of experience providing Chinese herbs, because again, if you're taking medications or doing IVF, you want to make sure that you see somebody who knows what they're doing, just like with acupuncture. But it can be a really, really great way to get daily therapy without having to go and see a practitioner for an appointment.
I love it. Thank you for that. Well, amazing. So Michelle, tell us any final thoughts you have before we close out. Any words of encouragement or advice you want to leave our audience with?
I would just say, if I've learned anything in the 10 years that I've been practicing, it's that, try to take the pressure off yourself. Try to give yourself a break, because there's still so much we don't know about how conception works. There's so much that science still can't tell us about the reasons why somebody might do all of the right things. Eat the right diet, get the acupuncture, take the supplements. They might be doing IVF and their lining is perfect and their embryos are genetically perfect, and they still might not get pregnant. And their friend just looks at her husband sideways and gets pregnant accidentally. Like, there's still so much that we don't know. And so while we're discovering that, just do the best you can with the information that you have, and then let yourself off the hook.
I love that. I completely agree. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here. It's been so fun getting to know you and having you on the show. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. And thank you guys for listening to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Until next time, bye for now. Hey, hang on just 1 second before you go. I want to make sure that you are aware of all of the amazing free resources that I have for you on my website at CoachKayla.com. From a fertility meal plan, a cycle syncing quick start guide, a holistic healing cookbook, as well as master classes, blog posts by me and some amazing experts in the fields of fertility, hormones, and nutrition. So many wonderful resources that will help you on your journey. And I wish there had been something like this when I was going through my 2 years of infertility, but there just wasn't. And so that's why I decided to create all of this for you. So make sure that you go and check it out and you take advantage of this plethora of support that I have provided for you. And spoiler alert, these were some of the same tricks and the same foods that I used to get myself pregnant, not once, but twice, even after my doctors said that I couldn't. So I know that these things work. Make sure you take advantage of that. And I cannot wait for you to be my next success story. So thanks, love. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in today to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. Check out the show notes for today's episode at CoachKayla.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a review. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.